In this edition of FSW Conversations, we are talking to Philipp Labkovskiy, Global E-commerce Director for ECCO, overseeing the brand's digital commerce strategy to drive growth and enhance the customer experience worldwide. With over 2 decades of experience, he is an accomplished leader dedicated to integrating innovation and consumer-centric solutions in the digital retail space. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today, Philipp. I would love for you just to chat a little bit about how you got your start in the worlds of retail and digital.
Yeah, hi Jessica. Thank you very much for having me today. And I don't know if that's a usual journey or an unusual journey, but my corporate journey started in wholesale more than a decade ago with a fashion industry. So I'm stuck with our beloved industry. But it's great because this is a super exciting area and super exciting time for our industry. However, started in wholesale, grown to a wholesale director for a fashion brand. And after that, but there was more than 10 years ago when e-commerce was really picking up and we started establishing owned and operated e-commerce marketplaces and everything. And after that, I moved across a couple of retailers. A couple of them you might know, brands called Board Riders. That includes wonderful brands like Quicksilver, Roxy, DC Shoes, Billabong, etc., etc. And for the past almost 5 years, I am working in a wonderful brand called ECCO. ECCO. We are a Danish company. We make the best shoes in the world. And we sell them globally through our own and operated e-commerce, as well as our wholesale partners and marketplaces. And right now, I'm in charge of the global e-commerce setup, driving all efforts when it comes to online sales through D2C channel.
No, that's fascinating. And I love how your career has grown with the sort of expansion of e-com itself, so kind of from the beginning, because I think that gives you such a unique place in terms of your career is going as the industry itself is being shaped. So one question I have just starting off, given your kind of unique positioning as an e-com director, is just how has the evolution of e-com transformed consumer expectations for retail experiences in recent years? Because I feel like e-com coming into the pandemic was one thing, e-com coming out of the pandemic is something else. So they think customers, their sort of expectations from brands now are quite different than they were, say, even 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that what really shaped during the lockdowns our consumer expectations is before that, D2C retail and D2C omnichannel was an expansion of retail in general. There was some additional service that retailers were offering, and there was a complementary channel to the retail strategy. After the pandemic, we got so used to things being delivered and we got so used to using the digital platforms. I think, again, no news, no surprises here. Amazon and other retailers in different regions, different countries, there will be a different player in that area. They now shape the expectations, which means that if you're a DTC brand and you're offering delivery terms, returns terms, and conditions, and then payment methods, your consumers are not going to compare you with other retailers. They're going to compare you with the experience that they're getting on these big platforms and marketplaces, which really puts a lot of pressure because it's easier said than done in many cases, especially if you're a big company or have a complicated IT setup or just operate across different markets. It makes it more and more sophisticated to cater to the needs of a modern consumer.
That makes a lot of sense. How important is data for you right now in understanding sort of the changing nature of consumer tastes and expectations as you go? Like, how do you learn what to expect from consumer needs? Because as you know, I work in the field of content, and content strategy is really all shaped by finding that happy place where brand vision meets consumer needs. And I'm always curious, just from a data strategy side, especially for e-com, like, how do you learn about your customers?
This is really a very important question for the industry, and I think for all of the retailers out there, but also for us in ECCO. And this is where we really focus a lot in this year and we'll focus in the coming years, because consumer data is where you can gain so much insights, and it can go throughout your whole strategy, from what product do you make, what services do you provide, how do you provide them, how do you build your value chain. For us particularly, this is very important because ECCO is one of the last standing, completely vertically integrated brands. Maybe our listeners will be interested to know that we actually manufacture ourselves in our own factories all of the products that we sell. No, almost all of the products, the shoes for sure. And we also own all of our stores, the value chain, so full value chain owned by us. And you can imagine that the more data we have, the more we can predict how to move across this value chain and how to create value. Then an interesting conversation, and to link it to your previous question, every retailer and every brand these days have a very interesting crossroads and a decision to make. You can start selling with the marketplaces, and they solve a lot of operational questions and operational problems for you. You can start very fast and you can deliver a very good experience for your consumers. And the main thing, you can gain consumers very fast. But at the same moment, you don't get data. And that's one of the key elements of this deal. You start selling through Amazon, but they don't share the data with you. But at the same moment, to get your data, you need the DTC channel. This is where you can sign up your consumers, and then actually put together some kind of segmentation strategy and personalization strategy, CRM, direct communication strategy, which is necessary if you want to retain your consumers. And if you want to have a sustainable business, you want to retain your consumers. I really believe that retailers these days need to play in both fields and be excellent in both. This is just how commercial landscape is today. But if you're playing the DTC game, one of the key advantages of this game is, of course, getting the consumer data. It becomes more and more complicated. Different headwinds really make our job more and more interesting every year and more complicated. That's for sure. But in essence, it's the game is still the same. This is your consumer buying directly from you, so you maintain the relationship. The instruments, the techniques, how to do that may vary, but then the idea is you maintain this relationship directly, and you have a possibility to actually still be top of mind for this consumer after they purchase your products or services. And this is something very valuable, and this is super hard to achieve if you only sell through wholesale or through marketplaces.
It's hard to track things that you don't have control of, obviously. So, yeah.
This is how it just works, because now being in a global e-commerce position, I have a good overview of how e-commerce works in different parts of our map. And for example, in China, there is no DTC. So it just doesn't exist. They only sell through local marketplaces like Tmall, JD. But the interesting thing is that you can set up your own shop over there, and they will actually give you access to your consumers because it has the inbuilt CRM system and etc. In the Western countries, we only dream about that, and we're certainly not getting that from Amazon or other marketplaces.
Oh, that's fascinating. Transparency from the Chinese market sounds really strange, but that's very awesome.
Nobody in their right minds is opening a direct-to-consumer e-commerce website in China because nobody will go there.
That makes sense. Just to keep on the data thread, I'm just curious from just a general standpoint. As a content strategist, I think a lot about success metrics, mostly because I feel like no brand actually measures content performance anywhere, but I'll get to that later. And I'm curious from your perspective, just for other e-commerce leaders in the field, what are the most important metrics or kind of data points that you track when it comes to both, I think, kind of customer behavior as well as product performance? And that just from a high level, because I know that people always love kind of those KPIs or I'm just curious for you what your mind goes to when trying to figure out, are we doing okay? Are we not?
Yeah, of course. And actually, I don't know about all brands, but we do track the effectiveness of our content. And at least we try to run an A/B test every time we're doing any major change in our user interface and experience on our websites. So we do run those A/B tests to prove that the changes are improving our business. Sometimes it being painful to see that the results are not
Yes.
there. Sometimes you spend a lot of time on actually implementing something or improving something, and you're thinking, yeah, that's the winner. That's the one that is going to change the game for us. And you see the results of an A/B test, and it's just not there. But this is also part of the game. Sometimes there will be something you don't believe in, and it's being implemented, and you're looking at the results, and all of a sudden it gives you double-digit growth. And that's part of it. We try and we learn.
That makes me very happy. I'm writing an entire book on basically retail content strategy and content operations. And that sort of A/B testing is exactly the sort of short-term kind of measurement for success that we recommend, simply because you don't know how well some sort of new website whether it's a component or a campaign or whatever actually is working unless you're actually measuring it.
But then to just KPI is such a broad area, and we can
Yes.
really, I think, talk for an hour only about the KPIs. But just to give you a very broad overview of how do we try to measure all of that and keep track of everything, we use this term of consumer journey, and this is super outdated. This conversation is like an omnichannel conversation. It's been around for
Yes.
decades already. Blah 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 CGM. Everybody uses it at one point, but at the same moment, we actually use it and we see the effectiveness of this because we think in micro conversions and we think in terms of how can you improve specific areas of your business. So, for example, if we're talking digital or we're talking omni-channel, if you see that your consumers are visiting your website or mobile app from this specific channel, how can you increase the KPI of them actually transitioning and join and seeing the website, or for an omni-channel perspective of entering the store? So visual merchandising or marketing will be very important here. In terms of marketing, it can be click-through rates. So we will be testing different creatives, how they result in different click-through rates. And then we try to divide all consumer journey into different areas and think of, okay, how the decision is being made. How do we improve those areas of conversion? And what we do is we commit to specific areas and we try to push this area to the limit to do the tests and to actually improve that area. So we give ourselves as a team some time to improve this, and then we move to the next task and the next task. Of course, sometimes the reality is that you need to keep track of multiple tests at the same time. You need to improve multiple areas at the same time. But our company is privileged because we have a global setup for a reason. We also have local teams. In every region, we have an e-commerce team. And we work, of course, together on those improvements. So that means that it's quite a big team and quite a powerful team in doing those improvements. Of course, we have some overarching metrics like Net Promoter Score to keep track of overall consumer
Mhm.
satisfaction. And we give our detractors, of course, a possibility to leave comments, and they can leave the comments what was wrong with their interaction with the brand, what went wrong, so we can actually drill down and improve those areas. If we see that something needs an improvement, we use the next step of metrics that we call customer satisfaction index. And we can actually use this KPI to drill down to specific operations where our consumers are saying that there's a problem, for example, with returns. And then we will put together a framework with this customer satisfaction index and try to understand how to improve it to an A/B test, implement, see what works better, and then roll it out for the global setup to improve an overall number. You never see an immediate result in NPS. So anybody who uses an NPS and thinks that, yeah, we will just improve this and NPS will grow, it won't. This is a metric that will show you result in the longer run. But then you can always see, you can find satisfaction in customer satisfaction index, and you can find quicker wins over there. I really like to think of a funnel for any purpose. If I need to explain something to our team, to our colleagues in the organization, or sometimes to management, an analogy of a funnel really helps all the time. So you need to acquire a consumer, then you need to convert the consumer. We use, of course, our websites, our mobile apps, our retail stores for that. Then there is an operation moment happening for e-commerce. This is the largest part of the iceberg, when actually the box gets picked up at the warehouse and it's being put in the truck and there is somebody delivering, returning, etc., etc. And we have an order management system for that one that manages all of the statuses across the status model after the order is placed, what happens. And there is numerous KPIs across that stage of operations to make sure that if we promise to deliver within the certain time frame, that we actually do deliver within the time frame. We have algorithms, we have, and here is not a buzzword, but we have AI algorithms that help us.
I was gonna just ask about that, and I love how I don't wanna say data-driven you are, but I think I love how data-informed your sort of strategic decision making is.
The thing that we started hearing about decades ago, and we still talking about digitalization, we're still going through this digitalization and improvement because there is no end of this
No.
process.
No, but you have a very integrated sensibility, and again, as a content strategist who spends half my day trying to educate brands on this importance of this more holistic mindset and why data in all these different touch points matters. I think you guys are doing that. So I love hearing about that in action. Just to dive in the weeds a little bit, since you mentioned AI, and I'm just curious for you guys, or even just in your opinion, what role do personalization and AI play in really delivering those sort of more exceptional online shopping experiences? Because there is a power in AI tools. I will never be a person to say that anyone should have AI replace their content production because I'm a writer and I think that good content doesn't necessarily come from AI. But I know, especially for everything from just the logistics of getting goods to people and tracking customer behavior, it does have a lot of power. So I'm just curious for you guys, how are you tackling personalization and how are you integrating AI tools into your processes?
Let's take on the personalization in a moment. I just really want to also comment a little bit on this topic with content and AI, because we're having these discussions at the moment, and this is like, I think majority of players in the retail space are faced with all of those AI opportunities to create the content. And we, of course, also look in this area. And I think that we won't be able to replace this creative brand storytelling completely with AI. And there is no need for that, I think. But there will be areas where creativity limits effectiveness sometimes, limits the velocity. And for example, something that we discussed with the marketing creatives and click-through rates, if you can update those images that you use then in Facebook or Instagram or any other your marketing channels, AI is a wonderful tool, and there are many vendors who offer to improve it. Actually, even Meta has an built-in possibility to improve your creatives. So here I think that this will really help. But when it comes to choosing your positioning, choosing the brand message that you want to send, today we think that we call it brand studio, does a wonderful job of actually telling the story that we want to tell to our consumers. And AI is only a tool in their hands, not
Mhm.
more. But talking about personalization, it has so many layers to this topic because it goes through all of this funnel, if you will. And the fourth step of the funnel that we haven't actually mentioned is the retention. So after you have
Mm.
something, so you acquired, you converted, you made all of the operations, and now consumer is the happy owner of your product or service, you hope to retain them. So now you have your loyalty program, your CRM system running. And personalization can be used across all of those steps of the funnel. This is why I love this funnel analogy so much, because it really can be used in all of the different topics. You can personalize your acquisition strategy, and all of the marketing channels are doing it for us. So no worries. I am sure that Google and Meta will just improve and improve in this area. So we will just provide the budget for them, and they will personalize it to the audiences. In terms of their strategic objective, of course, I'm
Yeah.
sure they would love to just provide us the budget, and this is the amount of
Yeah.
impressions that you will get, and this is the amount of conversions you will get, and to predict that, that is personalization.
I was at Gartner for a while, working on things, and there's been a lot of buzz the last, say, 2 years or so about hyper personalization and the ability to find people and find exactly what they want, to deliver exactly the right content to them at the right time. Tools like AI offer the potential to really, I think, rarefy content and be more directional and purposeful with getting the right product to the right people, but it can be creepy. And I'm just wondering from your end, how going into the future, are you thinking about personalization across your different customer bases and trying to leverage technology in the right ways without being predatory about it? Because I there's a lot of sort of nuances to that. So I'm just curious from your end, how do you balance retaining customers without turning them off?
So listen, we know the value of our products, and we value our key USPs first. So
Mm.
we make really good shoes, and we know the reasoning for why our consumers choosing us. And in terms of personalization, there is of course ways how we can segment and create hypotheses around different kind of monetary and behavioral types of segmentations to offer our consumers something that they might not even know, but from just the pattern of their behavior, of their spending with us. We're a 60-year-old company, so we were around for quite a while. Some of our consumers might not even be aware of the pattern of buying our shoes for years and years, and just to be there at the right moment to say, hey, by the way, this is the time to replace the laces, or this is the time when you usually buy your new golf shoes, etc., etc. It's very helpful. And coming up with the right price point, coming up with the right model that people would love because we know what their preferences are. I think that this is very useful for consumers, and this is a good reminder. Our lives are very busy these days, and if the brand can remind you at the right time, this
Mhm.
might be beneficial for both, I would say, for the brand and for the end consumer at the same moment. Of course, that implies, you said the word creepy. Sometimes when brands have the possibilities to know too much, sometimes when it's used, how to say, in a way that will creep our consumers out, we don't want to do that. Again, we know the
Yeah.
value of our product, and we just want to be there for our consumers at the right time with the product that we know they love. And for us, that's enough. There will be just smarter ways and more automated ways to do that. But our brand mission still is the same. Provides comfortable and quality product.
I love the way you're talking about personalization in a more contextualized way. I think it's funny because when I was talking about creepy, I think from just a consumer standpoint, the basic technology of, say, you leave an item in cart, they send you an email saying, by the way, you left this in your cart. And honestly, for me, depending on the brand, I'm okay with that. So I think, as you're saying, being discerning about those customers and their unique journeys and their history with you, I think is an important part of that. So I really love that.
Yeah, and we will see in the coming years. Listen, there is all of the data. Think about the fact that all of the data about all of our purchases, our behavior exists somehow in the world. So your bank knows everything about your purchases.
Yeah.
Your telecommunication company knows everything about your searches or about your calls or about whom you contact with, etc., etc. There is, of course, a certain way how legislators need to make sure that it doesn't become like one big pile of information, because if everything put together, then real creepy things might happen. Of course, from a commercial standpoint, that will be beneficial for the businesses,
Yeah.
but from a moral standpoint, that's arguable because that's already forcing our consumers. So I'm a big believer in doing a fantastic product and being valuable, bringing value to consumers. But then, of course, using some technologies to make your organizational structure and your business a little bit easier. But the core thing is our product and value for consumer.
No, I love that. And actually, from an e-commerce standpoint, I know the question of community is usually more a question for like social
Hmm.
strategy and media strategy side of things. But I'm always curious from an e-com side how you think about using e-com technology and sort of these sort of yes omni-channel types of things to kind of build community because you're talking about customer retention, you're talking about customer acquisition. How do you think about community and kind of building that sort of connection with consumers? Because I think it is that humanistic side to what you do.
Yeah. No, that's a wonderful question. And I think moving forward for many brands, building a community of loyal consumers will be one of the key challenges and one of the key tests. Because in a world where cookies are a thing of the past, in a world where it's harder and harder to track our consumers, and you want to have a direct line of communication, and you want to have this line accepted by the consumer. So they will willingly say, that's fun. This is cool. I want to be a part of that. And to do that, it's very hard. And loyalty program, as of majority of what we see on the market today, and I would be honest, the same thing for us in ECCO. We're rolling out a ECCO Club loyalty program today, but this is a mix of monetary and non-monetary benefits. Our consumers love that, but they love it for a reason. There is a monetary benefit that is attached to that, so it's a no-brainer, of course. But at the same moment, how to turn it into community is very interesting. I cannot say a lot because you will see a lot coming from Echo next
Yeah.
year. But one insight I can share is that we are running a very interesting pilot project this year in the United States. I was never a big believer that a DTC brand needs a mobile app. I always thought,
Mm.
don't we have already enough of those apps in our phones? And then when it's a fashion brand, what is the frequency of purchasing in this fashion brand? Who needs a mobile app of a fashion brand? But the insight for me was that we tried it this year. We have rolled out Echo mobile app. If you're listening to us and you're in the United States, go to any of the mobile app stores and type in ECCO, ECCO, you will see our mobile app, download it, and you will see the app. Turns out that this is not only a commercially successful thing if executed correctly, there is also endless possibilities to engage with your consumers through
Mhm.
push notifications and some specific offerings that you provide to your consumers. And this is an analogy that we use as like a magnet for loyal consumers, because yes, there will always be consumers to whom your product or service is a commodity. You want a good quality and comfortable shoes. Yeah, you choose the brand, but how big of a fan are we of every brand that we use along our life? But in the app, you will have most loyal consumers. The conversion rates are higher, the retention rates are higher, their average checks are higher. All of the commercial metrics are better in the app than they are on the website. There are reasons for that. The app is just user interface and experience is just better in the app than it will be on any kind of website on a mobile device,
Mhm.
because the app is more native to your phone when it's done correctly. But at the same moment, the retention is also better. So there is endless possibilities, and I think that our brands, as well as many other brands, are thinking a lot about building a community and what to offer over there to keep the interest between the
Mhm.
purchases. If your frequency rate is 1, 2, 3 purchases a year, then how do you maintain top of mind? How do you maintain interest in your consumers between those purchases? That's an interesting question, and there are many ways to do that. And we're going to drill down and explore those options next year and the coming years for sure.
No, I love that, and I see so many retail brands doing that. For having been dismissed for so long, I think the mobile app can, in some ways, offer much richer opportunities for more localized storytelling. I think you're quite right when done right. If you're already a loyal consumer, it can be a way to draw people in. It's just I think it puts less demand on the user. They already know they love your brand, so that's not a question anymore, and it's really just a matter of experience, and conversion becomes more of a just, how do we build value? So I love that you're building value because I think that's very amazing. Just in terms of technology and all the different elements you've been talking about for e-com, just to take it back up a level, I'm just curious, from your perspective, how can other brands effectively navigate the challenges of global e-commerce, both from the sort of cultural nuances of product localization and regionalization and all of that, to just the logistical complexities of getting things from where they're made to where they need to deliver? Any tips you can have for, in terms of things that brands should think about to navigate this sort of very complex global ecosystem?
It is complex, and I think that if in IT world, luckily, things become less and less complicated in the recent years, it's easier to create a website. It's easier to start your e-commerce business. Where in logistics worlds, even though we have 3PLs and we have companies who will do everything as one offer for you, it's still quite complex to navigate, and it's quite complex to maintain that part of the business because it's a lot of calculations, it's a lot of accounting, it's a lot of financial work, and those dusty boxes going back and forth. I would say that if you want a global setup and a global business, of course, one of the key challenges is where do you place your stock? If your stock is in the US, but you want to sell globally, how do you maintain the same level of service that is expected somewhere in Europe, for example? If you need to ship it here, but then the local competitors can ship next day and it will take you a week, then you always choose the levers you want to pull. Maybe you're building such a good brand that people are okay with waiting for a week to receive your product because, well, you're the best and the competitors are nowhere near. But at the same moment, if you are really in a battle with competitors and your consumers have a choice, it's complicated, and it will require you to first have the stock available to deliver the SLA, have the local needs met. I can give you one example. In Japan, it's a common thing that older people in the community will ask to be delivered fashion products to try it on at home before actually purchasing it. It won't be a huge percentage of your sales, but you're expected to provide this service. And in some other countries, people go to, for example, in Korea, will go to 7-Eleven to pay. So they will order something online and then will physically go to 7-Eleven. They will physically pay with cash money over there, and that's when it's paid. And your accountant will ask you many questions about how this will actually work and how this will be executed. And the list goes on and on. So in every single region and every single country, there are specific requirements. And if you only provide one option for payments, of course, that again, if your brand is very strong, you will maintain a certain level. But if your brand is already grown and now it's the battle for percentages, and you want to beat the competitions by percentages, you need to think about those incremental improvements and those functionalities. And it becomes very complicated. There is no easy solution. There is no easy choice. There is no one provider then you can sign a contract to become full, global, and all questions are removed. But it's a question worth answering because for a global brand, this will really help you grow, help you improve.
No, I love that focus on both, I think, service and localization, because I think that's where you get that sort of important differentiation for your brand. What other strategies do you think are most effective for bridging that gap between the sort of physical retail expectations people have for shopping versus the digital commerce divide there? Because I love that sort of cultural divide you were mentioning for sort of Korea and Japan with the sort of try on at home, but then you pay elsewhere or you buy. It's a divide, and I'm just curious what other strategies you think are like work best for getting people to shop online or both, or meeting that need where they are.
Still, you go into every brand and they still discuss the fact, okay, how do we make sure that our inventory is visible throughout any touch point, and then it can be ordered and the replenishment works, etc., etc. So it's a century old, and it still is a topic to focus on to actually provide the access to all of the inventory of the company in any touch point. So talking about people standing in the store and giving them an opportunity to order a color or a size that is not present in the store to be delivered within this store, within another store, to their home. It's a big question. Think about any of your recent experiences when you went into the stores. How present was that to you? How were you presented with those options? I'm sure that many people from retail listening to us from the brands is saying, oh, come on, what are you talking about, Philip? We have already implemented this a decade ago. It all works in our company. Everything works. Yeah, it does work. And guess what? In our company, it also works. But still, the question is, you are always on the mercy of store assistant. When they're doing their job
Mhm.
great, they will communicate those options. But how do you actually communicate it well? How do you make sure that those options are used by both the store assistants and the clients? How many of those opportunities are you missing because it's not communicated? So the art that we're all faced with now, even though we have implemented in the recent decade all of those processes in our ERP systems and order management systems, how to actually make sure that people use those now.
Yeah.
So let's be honest, look in your Excel spreadsheets, look in your percentages of orders and stores and things like this, and be honest about what percentage of your revenue that is. And somebody might be a champion in this. Somebody might say that, no, we have a room for improvement. If you're a global brand, then you might see that in some regions it will be better, in some regions it will be worse. Okay, so how to improve it in the worst regions? So there is still a lot to be gained and a lot to be improved by the retailers, even though we think omnichannel is a thing of the past. It's not.
Not to toot my own horn, but our take on this, I run a content strategy agency, which isn't really exactly a thing yet in fashion and retail, even though we're trying to make it that. But we take this very expansive definition of content as anywhere your target audience is encountering your brand messaging, both in IRL and digital. And this taking a holistic lens on content and putting content strategy in front of that, I think for things like sort of customer experience and online shopping and all of this, taking that for us, that content first approach allows you to build guidelines, build sort of rules and processes that sort of cover customer interactions, both in person and digitally, and allows both sales associates, but even chaplains and feeding all of that. But this need for think consistency, and really for us, it's this need to ensure that brand storytelling feels the same and appropriate kind of touch point by touch point so that in-person experiences feel personal, but it also feels like ECCO when people are interacting with ECCO there. And then it feels the same online, but attenuated to the channel. And I'm not saying that a content strategy can do everything together, but I think it's so powerful on top of, say, that same kind of integrated data approach you're already taking to think more holistically about where your customers are and what they need from you at these different touch points, and really trying to step back and figure out, okay, what do they need in that moment? You're talking communications, but it's content in a way, right? It's how do the sales associates need to talk about our brand? What products should they present now? What are the other options they have? And there's this sort of whole kind of mapping you start to be able to do from a content angle to ensure that you at least have this body of information that you can put in front of customers and then track data by data, track the data touch point by touch points. That for us is what I'm writing a book about. And this is the work our agency does. But I think for what you're saying, there's still, we talk omnichannel a lot, but so much of it, from our standpoint at least, is that every brand in a sense needs to make omnichannel their own thing. So your brand is everywhere, which is great, but you need to find the right technologies for you for the right channel and that meet your brand, your products, your sort of customers. So I love that you're talking about that journey because so much of the time when I think you're talking technology, people talk about it as fixed. We're all omnichannel now. And it's actually, no, this is always constantly evolving. And I love that you guys have that mindset because that's the growth mindset you have to have because it's survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there are different types of omnichannel. So you might be operationally omnichannel, but at the same moment, you go on the website of the brand and it's one picture. You go into the store and then you want to talk content. You miss all of the content that you see on the website. So this is one experience using the product description page. This is a different experience of actually holding the products in your hands in the store. And I think that one of the interesting like tasks to solve in the coming years for retailers will be people will expect more and more that content that they are used to when shopping online will be somehow represented in offline as well. Because I recently checked out the report from Klarna, where they said that 42 or 48% of consumers, when they shop in offline, they use their phone to assist the shopping experience. And of course, we understand that many of those are actually using Amazon to see if there is a better deal or check out nutrition facts if this is FMCG and this is some kind of grocery store. But at the same moment, it just tells you that, yeah, people want this. People are so used to this experience of having the product description available to them that we're sometimes lacking this in the store. You stand there, you look at this shelf with dairy products, and you're like, oh, okay. How do I choose? Or you're looking at the granolas and you're like, fantastic. So you use the packaging for the full extent, but now I need to spend 20 minutes to read all of the packagings and I don't have time for that.
Yep.
How can I just compare and make an educated decision, but do it really fast? And it's not solved so far.
No, and I so agree with that. And I do the same in store when shopping. I pull up my phone, but I want to research how the product is made, where it is. I'm a content person, so I'm always concerned about like the story and the heritage and all of that. But also just simply, you can only tell so much from a label, right? I love that sort of attention to detail because I think it shows where digital can support in person shopping and then vice versa in this sort of more strenuous type of relationship. Just to finish up, I'm just curious from a high level, any parting thoughts on the future of digital e-com and sort of key trends being important for brands moving forward?
I would name AI if you want to talk about the trends, because this will impact everything that we do so much. But that there is many ways how this might develop, and of course use of artificial intelligence is very important, and it will be used in different ways across different areas of your business. I would say just in general, the mobile first approach still a topic, still important. And even though all of our websites are now adaptable and we are mobile first, and every fashion retailer will tell you that 70%, 60% of their traffic is mobile traffic these days, of course, we focus there. But how can we actually connect the realities and make this mobile first in offline environment, et cetera, et cetera? So taking the next step is also very interesting. I think that order management systems and systems that help retailers and e-commerce companies manage the operational side of things, that is still a more complicated area than the software area, will also be very interesting to look at. And just given the economic situation globally, I think all of the promotional activities, even though it might sound that is something, okay, we all do promotional activities, so what? So I think that it will become more and more interesting. The word promo code is already one of the most Googled words when used together with any brand name. the word promo code, the word discount, and people are searching for those deals. All of the marketplaces are happy to provide those. They already build it into their margin. All of the marketplaces already have that in their financial strategy. And then, of course, many of the brands have it too. But then how to actually implement it, how to do it in a smart way, all of those shopping days, and how to participate it on the marketplaces, but also do it in DTC while maintaining an omni-channel pricing strategy is an important task for many brands. And we talked a lot today about omnichannel, so I think that it's still a topic, but then the next step after you've executed the operational side of the things, how to make this experience being seamless across the channels. That's also a big one.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciated your insights.
Thank you for joining us for another great discussion as part of FSW Conversations. For deeper analysis and insights, please visit Fashion Strategy Weekly at fashionstrategyweekly.com, a media publication of strategy agency It's a Working Title. For questions, comments, and concerns, please reach out to our media team at info@itsworkingtitle.com. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of your favorite podcasting platforms.